I'm riding every major ride at Movie Park Germany, from a crazy boat ride to the worst wooden coaster on Earth, a studio coaster, SpongeBob coaster, and so much more, starting with their Star Trek coaster, which starts by letting us walk through a full-sized replica of the USS Enterprise's bridge. Then we entered into the station and started the ride, with us rolling out of the station and coming to a stop. Then the track started slowly sliding to the side, lining up with the launch track and very slowly launching forwards. We picked up a bit of speed and rose up, but we weren't going fast enough, so we rolled back and hit the launch again, throwing us backwards and up a big twisting spike that was okay in the front but amazing in the back, pinning me to the side of the seat as we spun around. We dove out of the spike and hit the launch a third time, picking up more speed, rocketing up, and this time we made it, nearly stalling out of the top, then diving down in another moment that's okay in the front but extremely powerful in the back, ejecting me from my seat as we fell down, then ripped through a turn, shooting up and again slowing down. We slowly rotated through a roll, holding me upside down a little before we fell to the ground and got whipped to the side and shot through a building. We hopped over a little hill, then fell down a little drop, lifting me from my seat, then flew over another, throwing me into the air with more power, then slamming me back down as we twisted through an intense turn that rose up and rolled into a super slow roll, holding me upside down, then taking us into the brakes, ending the ride.
Okay, that was actually really good. It kind of felt like it was running like 5 miles an hour too slow, but weirdly, I feel like that kind of added to the ride, making everything more drawn out and floaty.
From there, I went further back into the park, through the Santa Monica Pier area, and over to one of the lowest rated roller coasters in the world, Ironclaw.
Now, this type of coaster, just the sight of it is enough to send shivers down the spines of people, because this is one of, if not the most infamous model of coaster for producing the roughest and most painful coasters in the world. I've had a couple experiences with these on this channel, and they have consistently just been awful.
The first thing I noticed after getting into line was that this coaster had these huge head-sized over-the-shoulder restraints. Most of this is padding, but if a coaster needs this much padding to be comfortable, that's not a good sign. But nonetheless, I climbed on and started the ride, which starts with a twisting drop, shaking me around as we curled to the ground and immediately shot up into a big roll, somehow throwing me forwards as we leveled off, then shaking me around a bit as we flipped back right side up, only to twist upside down again and dive to the ground. We roughly rose back up over a high turn that was fairly rough, but not something that I was really paying attention to, because for some reason this entire coaster smelled horrible.
That smells like dog poop! Why does it smell like that?
I was shoved back into my seat and held there as we rose up into a half loop, again somehow throwing me forwards at the top as we untwisted and roughly made our way through a helix, with my head playing pinball on the restraints in the process. The helix suddenly turned into a roll, whipping us over the track, then immediately spiraling us through another one before we dropped down, which again reeked of dog poop for some reason. Finally, we rose up and hit the brakes, ending the ride.
Well, you know what? That wasn't actually that bad. Like, it was rough, it threw my head around, but they had these giant pillows right by my ears, so instead of bashing my head against some hard restraints, it was just like bashing my head into a pillow. I was kind of distracted the whole ride because the entire area smells like dog poop. I'm being dead serious. I don't know what's causing it to smell like that, but it is vomit-inducing. It is awful, but it was not nearly as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. Unfortunately, I can almost guarantee that's not going to be the case for the next coaster,
Bandit, which is currently the lowest rated wooden coaster in the world. It's also one of the few remaining coasters manufactured by the RCCA, the same company that created classics like the original Rattler. Man, that sure looks like a great wooden coaster. And of course, they also played a huge part in the construction of the Son of Beast, one of the most infamously terrible coasters ever created. So I was really not excited to ride it. But after walking into the station, it was time to ride, which starts with a little drop out of the station into a small turn, and already somehow it was rough. Then we started climbing up the lift, and the entire time I was just hoping that something would happen that would cause the ride to shut down, we'd get stuck in the lift, and I wouldn't have to ride. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. We fell down the boring drop and started picking up speed, violently shaking me around as we rose up into a huge and extremely slow turn, being somehow both boring and also somehow incredibly rough as we worked our way over to the next drop, then dove down and brutally made our way through the wooden structure, rising up and over a big hill that I thought would throw me from my seat, but that would be too much fun, so we just slowly made our way over. We dove to the ground, then rose up and over another huge boring turn that again was incredibly rough, and also, as with everything on this coaster, unreasonably slow. Eventually we fell down a little drop and ripped through the supports again, again and flew over a hill that did actually throw me into the air a bit, then dove down and into another extremely rough turn. I thought by this point it must be almost over, but instead it just kept going, rattling its way through a few more hills, another turn, another super rough hill, and finally one last slow and rough turn, taking us into the brakes, which of course were super strong and super painful.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I would not say that that is the roughest wooden coaster I've ever ridden. That dishonor still goes to Hades 360 at Mount Olympus, but I will say that that is undoubtedly the worst wooden coaster I've ever ridden. Like, don't get me wrong, Hades was awful, but it still had a couple redeeming qualities to it. This has nothing. The layout is the most boring thing I've ever experienced. I honestly feel like if I wasn't being shaken the entire time, I could have fallen asleep on that thing. And then of course, it's extremely rough and bumpy. That is all around terrible.
After that, I started making my way over to the next ride, but something caught my eye. The park's drop tower was not a normal drop tower, it was a floorless standing drop tower, and I had to give it a try. As you'd expect, the seats for this ride were a bit concerning looking, but at this point I was way too far in to back out, so I sat down, or I guess stood, and started the ride, which starts, like all drop towers, by slowly rising up, which is a bizarre feeling with my legs dangling. I felt like I was in Minecraft creative mode as we rose up, and this was not a short drop tower, so we were climbing for ages. The seats were weirdly comfortable, which is nice because when we made it to the top, we sat there for a while. Then, with no warning, we dropped, which, just like everything else on this ride, was a bizarre feeling. I was lifted up and the wind forced my legs up, leading to one of the best weightless feelings I've ever had on a ride. Then the brakes kicked in at what felt like the last possible second, giving me a moment of panic before more than a moment of pain as I was shoved into the seat.
Oh my god, that is so crazy. I think that might be my favorite thing in the park so far.
I rode the tower again, then I went over to something that caught my eye right as I entered the park, the Area 51 water ride, which looks to be by far the best themed ride in the entire park, and something I had to try.
So I've only ever seen little short clips of this ride, but the very little I've seen makes this look like one of the coolest water rides in the world.
It starts with a slow lift, pulling us into the mountain, then we fell down a shockingly long drop.
Oh, we're still dropping!
And splashed our way into a secret government facility. We floated through a small dark hallway for a little, then saw some aliens and floated further into the base past tons of military stuff. Eventually we found our way into what looks to be an old temple where we saw a bunch of people who were locked in tubes. Then we entered into the main command center where we saw tons of aliens and a transmission from the military before continuing out into the darkness. We drifted past a ton of lightning in tubes and saw a spaceship disappear in front of us as we heard that the base was entering into code red. We entered into another command room and saw a few people talking, which seemingly said that the tunnels were caving in. It was all in German and I don't speak a drop of it myself. All the while the boat was on a turntable that was spinning us backwards. Some water started pouring out of the wall and we started backing away and through my favorite scene of the ride as the massive cave started getting flooded with water. We slowed to a stop, then turned to the side on another turntable which lined us up with another lift, slowly pulling us out of the cave and to the moment I'd been dreading all ride, the drop. We crested the lift and, without even a moment to prepare, started hurtling down the drop, colliding with the water and creating a massive wave that thankfully left me mostly dry, ending the ride.
That was kind of amazing. The scale of a lot of those scenes was kind of crazy, and that first drop caught me so off guard. Like, I was expecting a little tiny drop. We were falling for what felt like 10 seconds. It was so much bigger than I thought it was gonna be.
After that, I set off to the park's incredibly large kiddie area for a ride that I really did not want to ride. Ghostchasers, the park's SpongeBob themed coaster, which unfortunately is a wild mouse, my absolute least favorite coaster model in the world.
This ride feels like it's designed to trick people. They're taking something that's fun and universally loved as SpongeBob and attaching it to legalized torture, that being a wild mouse.
It starts with a slow lift, taking me to the infamous wild mouse turns. I was painfully thrown and pinned to the side of the vehicle, then whipped back as we went straight, only to be brutalized by another turn, bashing me into the side of the car. I blazed through some brakes, which are designed to slow the train down, but did nothing, then hit another one, painfully shoving me into the side of the car. I got a second to rest thanks to the straight track, then I was pulverized through another one. Again, the brakes didn't slow me down, and I smashed through another one, each more painful than the last, because the brakes, which they literally paid to install and can moderate the speed and pain of the coaster, were all turned off for some reason. I hit another one, which quickly lessened the pressure on my arm as we slowly turned around while dropping down. Then we snapped to the side and went straight, which I normally would hate, but here it gave me a moment to rest. Thankfully, the brakes after that slowed me down. Then I hit another turn, went straight, painfully turned, and fell down a drop. And as much as I hate to say anything positive about this type of coaster, this was actually a pretty decent drop, lifting me from my seat. It hopped up, hit some more brakes, and smashed through a few more turns, then dropped down a less good drop and hopped over a small hill that did nothing and took me into more brakes. And finally, after a little dip, I hit the final brakes, ending the SpongeBob themed torture.
That is easily my least favorite ride in the park. I hate Wild Mouse coasters with a burning passion. I do not understand how anybody can possibly enjoy them. Like, they are like designed to be painful.
After that was over, I went over to the other water ride in the park, Excalibur, which I'd heard was even better than Area 51. It starts with a really well-themed line taking me through a castle and past a round table. Then I boarded onto the raft and started the ride, climbing up a slow lift and going down a little drop through a cave. We burst out into the light and into an incredibly well-themed canyon, then went past this guy who sprayed us with water before we went through a small cave and through a bit of a valley, seeing a unicorn and entering into the inside of what kind of looks like a giant beehive. We drifted through some dead trees surrounded by dead knights, under and past a serpent that sprayed us, and down another small drop that thankfully didn't get me wet before going through a huge stone mountain past even more dead knights and entering into a cave, revealing a huge tower. On the back of the tower we found Excalibur, then we drifted past some water and back into the station, ending the very quick but exceptionally well done ride.
That had some of the largest sets I have ever seen on any type of water ride. I do really wish though that it was just a traditional log flume. Like, I was going backwards the entire time, which made it really hard to see any of the story elements and sets and cool stuff. Like, I had to really crane my neck and my back around to see anything. Nonetheless though, that was still an incredibly fun ride.
That was a good rapids ride, but in my next video I'm riding the craziest rapids ride I've ever ridden, plus tons of amazing coasters at Phantasialand, which is the best theme park I've ever been to. So subscribe if you want to see that, it will blow your mind. Anyways, after that I went over to the final major ride in the park, the Studios Tour, which let me walk through a movie studio in the line, taking me past a fantastic miniature of the Area 51 water ride, and this one of the Val Helsing Factory coaster that was closed all day when I was there. Then I entered into the station. We kind of launched out of the station and made our way through the halls of the studio with the lights starting to flicker around us. We're meant to go straight, but the clipboard, who's in charge of the tour, has other plans and diverts us to the side and into a set they're filming on. Wind starts going all around us and we see a tornado heading towards us in front of us. Then the roof gets ripped off and the stuff gets thrown all around before we launch backwards and twist and turn our way around the studio, stopping in a storage room. We slowly turn around on a turntable and see this guy arguing with the clipboard, who sends us through another active set with us twisting and turning our way through a really neat city. We pulled into a tunnel and launched alongside a little car, picking up a fair bit of speed, rising up and bursting out of the studio. We dipped down and hopped over the entrance, then threaded through the water tower before going back into the studio. We immediately twisted to the side, then twisted the other way and went past a huge King Kong, then burst through a billboard and hit the brakes, making our way back into the station and ending the ride.
That was great. It might actually be my favorite ride in the park, full stop. I love how breakneck the speed and pacing of that ride is. Like, normally when you have a coaster that's a coaster dark ride hybrid, it's like 99% slow moving and then 1% actual coaster. This felt like a pure coaster dark ride hybrid. Not that I dislike dark rides, but I think when you have one that's also a coaster, it should feel like a dark ride coaster hybrid and not like a dark ride with a tiny bit of coaster to it. And this did that fantastically.
Also, I've been making a top 5 list of the best rides I ride in Europe, and unfortunately nothing in this park got added to the list. Though I did still really enjoy this park, I went into this park with fairly low expectations, but I was pleasantly surprised. It definitely does have a couple stinkers, but despite that, I had a pretty good time in the park. The Studios Tour was great, and the Star Trek coaster always had a short enough line that I was able to ride that thing over and over again. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then you should check out this one from Efteling, one of the best theme parks I've ever been to.